Hello and welcome to the Wedding Pro podcast, the podcast where we share tips and tricks for wedding vendors and couples, share insight into the wedding world, and share about our experiences. We are Gracie and Angela Felix of Felix Wedding Films. We are so glad you tuned into this week's episode. Now let's get into it. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm super excited to get started. We are in a new episode with Madelyn Tenney Events. We're going to be talking all things branding, all that fun stuff in the wedding industry.
Yes.
I'm excited because we are kind of in a series right now with the podcast, and we're going to interrupt that series a little bit with this episode because we just figured better to bring it out sooner rather than later. But before we get into the episode, I would love it, Madelyn, if you could just introduce yourself, tell the listeners who you are, where you're based, what you do, all that good stuff.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been so looking forward to today, and I've been a longtime podcast listener. So now this is so fun getting to be on it. So I'm honored. But my name is Madelyn. I am the owner and creative director of Madelyn Tenney Events. We are a wedding planning and design company based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a team of 6 women who are incredible, and they're just the best in the world. I adore them so much. But I started in the industry almost 5 years ago. So I've been in it. I feel like I've been in it for 40 plus years. I found a gray hair the other day, and it was alarming. I can't remember a time when I wasn't doing wedding planning, but I love it. I love design. That's my favorite thing. But we take 12 to 15 full service planning weddings a year. And I love what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. We were super excited for this specific topic. And I'm going to preface, I already told you, Madelyn, but I want the listeners to know that I'm a little sick, so my voice is not what it normally is. So please excuse the manliness. But when we were thinking about this topic, I immediately knew who would fit this because we've been in the industry for a very, very similar amount of time. And I feel like if anyone just embodies their brand, it's you. And you're going to, share all about that. But
Yes, of course. I appreciate
I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm super excited for probably a lot of vendors and maybe some couples to learn a little bit more about branding.
Yes.
But I know that you had professional help with your branding, of course, but could you walk us through that journey? Like, what did it look like? When did you decide to do it? How did you know you needed to do it? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So it took me about 5 years to brand a professional, which is crazy. I did my own branding initially, which I feel like is a very similar story for a lot of wedding vendors. And I learned very quickly that I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted in my brand, but I lacked some of the technical skills, I guess more so in terms of web design, graphic design, all the things. I actually learned that I needed to bring a professional, and it was kind of a funny story. I did the really brave thing where you send a potential client a feedback form and ask them, hey, why did you decide to go a different direction? So obviously, not always fun doing that, but I am a big believer in constructive criticism. So I sent the form. Well, I get an answer back that says, I really love your work. I love your wedding design. I think you were wonderful talking with, but your design and branding overall isn't matching the scale of your work and your wedding design. And so that was like, oh my goodness, truth bomb. But it stung a little bit. It was the most important feedback I feel like I've ever gotten. And it really helped me. So I went through a little bit of a brand transformation. I really wanted to keep the same elements consistent. I believe that that's really important. But I worked with Whimsy by Angela. She was amazing throughout all of our revisions. And there was a lot because I'm really picky, obviously, when it comes to my own design. But she was amazing. Our branding was really intentional. It was a great journey. And so I'm really happy that I did that. But it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very smart to ask for the feedback. I know that, a lot of couples might not share their feedback if they went another direction, but I'm sure you're appreciative that that couple did, even though it stung, but look where you are now,
For sure, for sure. It was helpful. It stung a little bit at first, but sometimes, that's the best feedback, so I appreciated it, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that you have like a background in public relations. Could you share a little bit about like how that shaped the way that you approach branding, like specifically, obviously, in your wedding planning business?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I actually graduated from the University of Georgia. So go dogs. I don't know if y'all are dogs fans or not, but I loved my time there. And I was in the Grady College of Journalism, which actually has a really rigorous PR branch and major. And so I knew going into college that I wanted to do something business related. And when I was in that program, it really helped to kind of define my path with PR and branding, and I couldn't even imagine how much it was gonna kind of spill over into my wedding planning business, and then helping other vendors and brides honestly do the same thing. So the program actually got to a point where right before we graduated, we were working with Athens-based companies doing the whole thing for them. So we're talking color psychology, we're talking marketing tactics, how they're presenting themselves into the world. So it was the real deal. And I always say too that I'm business first and a wedding planner second, which has really helped me, helped grow my team, and really helped with our systems and processes. But I really, really strongly believe that branding is so super important no matter what you're doing, but especially as an entrepreneur. And, we're not doing this as a hobby. We're running a business. We're putting food on the table for our families. It's super important. And I think that when you think about your branding in the same way that a huge multi-level corporation is, which you should be doing, that in turn demands a level of respect. And it all of a sudden goes from, oh my gosh, this cute hobby, this, little wedding planning thing you're doing to, wow, like you've grown this company and you're supporting these other women. And it feels really good to be at that point. But I think you have to be so intentional with it. So that's why I'm so passionate about branding, is because I think that that's where the credibility starts, and the respect starts. So it all kind of comes back to your why also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're kind of similar like with when we actually hired a professional. So I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago, maybe like two, that we officially quote unquote rebranded, but really was like we just branded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did we survive for so long without
Yeah.
cohesive branding? But like the
Yeah.
difference between just the respect and like the bookings and the, I guess, like
Just
recognition, it was like night and day. And I
absolutely.
still remember, like, I'm just thinking about our old website. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
that is just, I don't even want anyone to know what it used to look like
Hey, and you
because it
would
was rough.
yeah, and I mean, you would probably be shocked too if you saw my old branding when I first started. I mean, it was pink, it was swirls, it was all the things. And I don't remember when I made that initial switch to more of the refined, the blues, and I'll talk about all of that and why we chose what we chose in a second. But no, it's vastly different. And that's why it's so important too. I mean, I remember when you guys did your rebrand and I loved it so much. And I feel the same way about your branding, how it really just conveys your personalities. I mean, I think that the brand persona is really important. And for y'all, you're doing a great job. So I commend you on that. I think it's fabulous. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. We think the same about you. I mean, I was telling you on our call a little while ago that, like, when I see a photographer posting photos of a wedding, I'm like, I know exactly who planned that wedding. That was Madelyn's wedding. And then I go and look and, yep, I was right. That's her. So I feel like you definitely embody your brand very, very well. And I'd love to,
thank
like,
you.
jump into that a little bit later. But before we go too much further, for vendors that might feel a little bit like intimidated by the word branding, could you just like define that in simple terms for them?
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people think of like websites and colors, but could you just dive a little deeper?
Yeah, of course. I always like to tell people that your branding should be your personality, your persona, specific things about you, just on a larger scale. So it shouldn't be intimidating. It should feel really natural. And I think too that good branding should always contain your why, be very intentional, and really just showcase your heart. So it shouldn't be something that's scary. It shouldn't be something that's intimidating. It should be something that's exciting, that when you're thinking about, hey, what do I want to put out in the world? What do I want my business to represent? That's when the branding comes in. And that's why I think it's so fun. Like, I'm a little bit of a nerd about it, but it should be multi-layered. It should be, like I said, very intentional. And so it shouldn't be something that's intimidating that you want to put off. It's a fun part of marketing, even though it feels scary, which I completely understand why it would.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm thinking of like even down to like the imagery that you choose for your
Yes.
website, your social media. Like, for example, a big part of our brand is like family orientation and just like
Yeah,
that, of course it's the couple's day, but like family is super important. And so like
for
a lot
sure.
of imagery of like fathers walking their daughters down the aisle or like
Love that.
mothers crying and hugging their daughters, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's something that I would have never thought was like a part of branding until,
Thousands.
we hired professionals to like really teach us what branding was.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And I mean, I love that. I think that as you really nail down your branding and kind of get more into the ins and outs of everything, you realize how it affects every part of your business. And so I think that's a great example. I even tell people too, your social media strategy should be down to the emojis that you use. Like, they should be
Yeah.
consistent for us. We're always using little celebratory champagnes and white hearts and things that really flow with our branding. But that's just a tiny example of what you're talking about too. And it's so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, it is. And when you think of your own brand, what are some like words or feelings or I guess like things that you hope that clients or potential clients immediately associate with Madelyn Tenney events?
So I would say I'll dive a little bit into our branding and color psychology here. So I'm a little bit of a nerd about it, but we chose a soft blue to be our primary color for the brand because of color psychology and what I learned about that throughout college. So and specifically ours is very similar to like a robin's egg blue. So similar to what's behind me right now and my intaglios and the wallpaper, obviously. But when you think of a soft, cool blue, it evokes trust, it evokes comfort scientifically. So those things were really important to me to kind of sum it up. I think the most important thing with any wedding vendor, or if you're another small business owner, is just consistency and all of these things. Our logo is also very intentional. We actually just did that logo rebrand. That's what you're referencing, but it took us a long time, like I was saying, to get it nailed down. That's layered in and of itself. So we're a faith-based business first and foremost. That's why I do what I do. That's why all of our girls do what we do. And so our branding, we wanted it to be reminiscent of our faith. So we actually kind of geared it around the gates of heaven. That was something that was really important to me. And we also wanted the gate to represent our couples walking into this new season that we call marriage, right? So we love that. I'm also really big into design, obviously. So I've always been drawn to European and English architecture. So a lot of the arches and the really pretty molding really caught my eye when I was over there, and I'm still very inspired by it. So I wanted that logo specifically to draw from all of these things and just create a story for us. But again, I wanted it to be recognizable. I wanted it to be true to myself and our girls too. And so like I was saying, the most important thing is that your branding feels like an extension of yourself. And it took us a really long time to get right. But I feel now that it does, thanks to Angela, obviously, for helping us with that. But I love our branding, and I'm super proud of where it is now. So I appreciate that question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't know like, I just knew what I saw from your branding, but I didn't know like the
Yes.
backstory. So that's really cool that it's very intentional, not just like aesthetically, but like it has a deeper meaning, which I think is really, really cool. So that's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we kind of touched a little bit about this earlier, but like apart from like colors and logos, what are some other elements that make up a brand that if a vendor's like, okay,
Right.
this is great, I'm learning, like what makes up a brand? What are a few things that you could
Yes.
give that are like tangible?
So much more. I mean, I hear that all the time with just, hey, our branding's great. We have colors and a logo. And while that may be true, again, it's very layered. So I would say the biggest thing is you have to live out and almost personify your why and your messaging. For us, I mean, we always come back to our mission statement. I think that that's a very important part of branding for us. It's First John 4:19, which is we love because he first loved us. And so I want that messaging to be throughout my logo, to be, integrated in all of our processes, the way that I speak to my clients, the way that I train our new team members, the way I'm emailing people, the way I'm speaking to vendors. Like, we are loving first, and that leads everything else. And so I think that you just have to be, I keep saying this, but very intentional with those choices that you're making. And I think too, I'll touch on it in a little bit, but brand signatures and repetition is really important. So for me, I would say we have kind of signatures in our various aspects of branding. That even carries over into wedding branding. So when I'm doing my designs, I brand all of our weddings in terms of the same color compositions, the same fonts carrying throughout. We even scent our weddings, which is crazy, but it's very important. Scent evokes emotion. So all of these things, right, play into good branding. And I would just encourage listeners to kind of think about the things that make them excited with branding, and think too of every touch point in a client experience, right? So it's not just like we said, you have your, font systems, you have your logo, you have your colors, but the way that the messaging's integrated into every single part of the client process is big. And I think that it helps to kind of create that trust within clients too, that they know what they're getting when they come to meetings, when they start conversations with you. And so that's why I think that it's so important.
Yeah. And I feel like not only is it important for like clients to see that consistency, but I feel like when you have a really solid brand, I feel like it helps you attract those clients that are looking for that specific thing.
Yeah,
And then, we call it like attract and repel, quote
so
unquote,
true.
repel, the clients that you're not the best fit for, which does them a service. And it's very helpful because when you don't really have a very consistent brand like what we had before, you just
Mhm.
kind of attract whoever, which is totally fine. But if you want to really love and serve your clients very well, it's good for you to be the best fit for them. And I feel like with your consistency, clients know exactly what they're getting when they come to you. Like, they can already see if you're a good fit for them. I hope the same for us. That's our goal as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like there's just so many aspects to branding it's not just for the aesthetics.
Exactly. And I mean, I remember even the first time I had the conversation about ideal clients with our mentor planner. And I remember she asked me, she said, "Who's your ideal client? What are you trying, to attract with what you're putting out there?" And I vividly remember telling her, I'm not really sure. I just want people that love design, maybe they're floral heavy, Southeast region, just like, fun, sweet people that respect and trust us. And I remember her telling me, "Hey, that's not really a description of an ideal client." She was asking me, what do they do? Where do they live? What do their parents do? How do they dress? Where do they shop? And had me almost create this persona of an ideal client. And then, as I'm going throughout our new branding process, thinking about our messaging, it's always kind of referring back to that. And it's like you said, because we work best when our clients trust us, and repelling potential clients is not a bad thing. There's different ideal clients for every vendor out there. And we're ultimately, exactly like you said, doing them a service by knowing that, and by putting those things out into the world with social media and with blogging and with your messaging. It all is just one big continuous loop. So that's why it's important. But I love that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I'm going a little on a tangent that I didn't prepare you for. But I feel like before, when I heard the term quote unquote ideal client, at first I was kind of like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't, turn someone away if they want me to film their
exactly.
wedding. But it's not about that. It's like,
Exactly.
for example, we're relatively documentary style. We do, help with posing and prompting, but
Mhm.
that's specifically during the portrait session. We
Yep.
typically work with couples who, yes, they want to have like, beautiful imagery of them, but they also want majority of the day to be like very candid, enjoying those special moments with loved ones. And so if a couple comes to me and they're like, basically want the whole day a photo shoot, it's like, or a, video shoot in our case, it's like, well, I know other videographers who maybe are a better fit for you. Or like one of our good friends who a couple came to her and they were like, I want very documentary style. I don't even really want posing. And
Yeah.
she was like, I know exactly who to send you to. Like, I'm not the best fit. Go to Felix Wedding Films.
I
So
love
it's
that.
like, even down to those things, for any vendor who's listening who doesn't have a quote unquote ideal client, or any couple who's listening who's like, what the heck is this? It's not something to like, it's a way for us to best serve our clients, basically. Long
Exactly.
story short. And
Exactly.
once I learned that, I was like, oh, this is great. And I can communicate better to those people so
Yes.
that they can find us and we can work with the people that we're just the best fit for.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds scary at first, and it honestly sounds a little bit mean. I remember when I first heard about it, when we're going through, continuing education, all these things, it's a term that you hear a lot in the wedding industry. And I was a little bit standoffish about it, because I'm all about loving people, and I'm not about to try to turn people away, but it essentially boils down to client satisfaction. Like, are you best serving the people that, are walking into your business and that you're working with? And if the answer is yes, then they're going to walk away with the best experience. And so are you. And no, I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that you said it perfectly. So I would love to know, what is your advice for new business owners or just business owners who maybe have been in the industry for a little while, but they don't really know what their brand personality is yet?
Mhm.
Like, where should they start?
So that is such a good question. I actually do etiquette training as well. Little known fact, I don't really publish that or put it out there, but one of the first things that I have my clients do when I'm working with them, um, in etiquette specifically, is talking about their persona, their personal identity, what they want to, exemplify, all these things. And so the first thing that I typically will have them do, and I heard another creator say this, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but years ago we were talking about it. So this is not an original thought, but what I have them do first is go through and make a mood board and just kind of pull things that inspire them, things that they love, while staying very true to themselves. I mean, pull photos of how you would love to dress and your cool style, and if it's wedding specific, wedding design you loved, or your goals. And I always tell people to kind of go back to those things. Maybe that's when you're shopping. Maybe that's when you're getting dressed in the morning. Maybe that's when you're decorating a house. And ultimately, when you're thinking about your branding, it should be you. It should be your brand persona, what you want to put out. And for me, I mean, I have this down to a science, and I'm a little bit crazy about it, but I actually keep what's called my signatures in like a notes app on my phone, right? So I have my signature nail color. I get it every single time. I have my signature perfume. I have my signature order at Starbucks, all of these things. And so creating that persona, thinking about, hey, this is Madelyn, the wedding planner. Like, this is what I want her to, speak light to others, speak kindly, be loving, be this presentable kind. So it again is very intentional, and it helps when you're trying to create your business brand, because I think that it starts with yourself and then it comes a little bit easier, right? When you already know the things that you love, the things that you're drawn to, your style, and then you're crafting your branding for your business specifically, it should just flow. So if you were to come to my house right now, in terms of, myself, you're comparing it to me and 10 other wedding planners, you could look at my house and be like, oh, Madelyn lives here. It's the same decor that's in my office, is in my home, is in my weddings. And again, it's a cycle. So it's important. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I thought you would be really great for this topic. Because even like your wallpaper, it's like that's so you in your dress, which
yes.
that's another thing that maybe we touched on earlier, I don't remember, but like attire, that is a
Huge.
super important thing. Again, when we rebranded or branded, and like also hired our business coach, we learned a lot about like attire that need to represent our business well, which
Exactly.
we tried to before, but then we were like, okay, we need to step it up because our business is more refined now, and like we need to have a certain level of aesthetic when we're going out to events and stuff like that. And at first, it was a little difficult because I will say I'm not a fashionista. I got a lot of help from my sister. Yeah, but it's a lot easier now.
I think y'all do that very well. I mean, for us, that's a part of our SOP, which is our standard operating procedures for listeners who have never heard that term before. Our attire is important every time that, we're getting on a Zoom call, we're speaking with vendors, we're speaking with clients, we are business casual, right? Like we come prepared, we're presentable. On wedding days, our team, this probably won't shock you and you've seen this before, but we're all matching. So we wear little tucker neck dresses. We have branded little belt bags that we wear, name tags. And so we all match, and that might not be ideal for everyone, but for us, it really works. I mean, I do think that it's important, right? And going back to even color psychology, and just talking through what you want your brand to represent, it's also connected, which makes it fun. And when you're in design, which a lot of vendors are in this creative space, right? Your dress and how you present yourself becomes an extension of that branding. And even back to what we were talking about before, so your persona and your mood board and your goals. So to me, it's fun. Like it gets very exciting, and there's a way that you can streamline it, put it in your process, make it business friendly. But it's a fun part of the branding for sure.
Yeah, and it gets easier as you know, as the time passes. You embody your brand more. It's a lot easier for us now. And I'm even thinking back to like the first time that Angela wore a suit to a wedding. It was
Yeah.
like, that was a huge deal for us. But like now it's just normal. And he literally gets compliments every single wedding. I'm like, literally, I also dress very professionally and I don't get the compliments.
One, give her a compliment when you're with her on wedding day. I agree. I agree. I love when media vendors are dressed in the nines or in suits. And there's a big. I want to hear your opinion on this. So there's a big debate in wedding world right now on if vendors, you've probably heard this, should be wearing all black or if they should match to the design of the wedding. Have you heard this debate?
Yes, I do have an opinion about it.
Okay, I want to.
I think like when in doubt, all black is great. Preferably, I would love to always, like blend in with the guests. So if the guests have a specific like dress code, I would love to blend in with them. It's just sometimes we don't have that attire. So, a lot of times, Angela's go-to is his suit and my go-to is like all black professional. But
Same.
I feel like next year I am going to go shopping.
Yes. I still don't know where I land. I'm big on the process. I love our girls matching.
Yeah.
But I do like matching the design. I mean, some of our suite planners that we work with all the time, or we, follow along with, they'll do that. And I think it's so cool and fun. So maybe one day. I don't have a crazy opinion on it, but I get both sides. I was just kidding.
So we touched on this earlier a little bit. So if you don't have anything new to share, totally fine. But we know that you do like classic, Southern, traditional, faith-based weddings.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, I know that you went through the branding process, but like, how did you discover that that was what is true to you? And then, you already described how that influenced your branding, but like, how did that click with you that like, this is what I
Okay.
do?
I love that question. I I think something that's really beneficial that I did when I was really tweaking my branding and trying to nail it down was I went to the vendors that I work with a lot. I went to past clients, I went to the people who know me best, my husband, my best friends, my family. I asked them for words that they felt described me and my brand as a whole. And a lot of them were very consistent, like, they reigned true, so we got a lot of, you know, timeless, refined, Southern, classic, which to me is what I want our brand to convey. So that part came easy. Obviously, the faith aspect of it came easy. But I think that's a really great activity for someone to do. If, again, like what we talked about before, if you're curious about where your brain kind of lands or how you should start that process, it's a really useful tool and it can be kind of fun just to see what your colleagues, are receiving from you. So I like that.
Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna make a note of that because
Okay.
obviously I love our branding, but I'd love to know like how it's perceived.
Yes.
So, note to self, I will ask our clients about that
I
and
love
vendor
that.
friends.
Yes. I love it.
So, you mentioned that even something like your email signature is part of your brand. So, I'd love to know what are some other areas that are often overlooked that brand consistency still really matters in those areas?
One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten regarding this is you should think about your client experience and I touched on it a little bit, but every touch point and deliverable that they're getting. So for us, when our clients first inquire, we're sending them a wedding planning guide, which acts as an inquiry guide. I know that a lot of vendors do that the messaging in that initial email, right? The font systems that you're choosing, the photos of your work, like you talked about, that are in that initial guide, that's their first tangible impression of you and of your business. So that's the first thing. When they're getting on that inquiry call with you, for us, we do all Zoom. I'm really big about face to face, if you can call Zoom face to face interaction with our potential clients. I really want to connect with them. And so just carrying that branding, that consistency, if you're showing them any sort of deliverable or PDF, PowerPoint, whatever on that call, then, it's exciting. They book. We're going through the onboarding process every deliverable in that point. So if you have like an onboarding guide, keeping it consistent there. And it's a big job to go through your whole client process. Think about, their client satisfaction that they're receiving from each of those steps, making sure that it's all equally branded. But I'm telling you, it is so worth it because that is the feedback that we repeatedly get from clients is from start to finish in this whole wedding planning process. I felt so seen. I felt so supported. I knew exactly what to expect. I knew that things were going to be taken care of. And so creating that experience for them from start to finish, especially with planning, because it's such a long process. We're talking to our clients probably daily. So doing that work, going back through your whole planning process or, your media process or whatever it may be in your line of work, it again is a little bit challenging at first, but once you do it, it's so rewarding. And I think that it shows in the client satisfaction too.
Mhm. Yeah. That you said a few things that I want to touch on a little bit too.
Yeah.
So, like, talking about like inquiries coming in. So, if a part of your branding is that you're, reliable and professional, but you
Yes.
don't respond for days, it's like, what does that communicate to
Percent.
the client? And
Yes.
like a big part of our brand is like transparency, consistency, reliability. And so we're responding like as soon as possible. Typically, we try to do like 30 minutes or less, but
Yeah,
sometimes that's not always possible.
for sure.
All the way down to, like you said, the video call. That's super important, for brands who are like, I want to be really personable with my clients. I want to personalize things. But then if you don't get on a video call and you just do a phone call, that doesn't
Yeah.
really communicate that to your clients.
Mhm.
Um, all the
Totally.
way down to like obviously we're videographers, so it's like after the wedding day, a lot of couples they want to know when they're getting their films. Of course, it's in the contract, but even just not everyone remembers what the contract says. So it's like after the fact, I'm emailing them like congrats, thanks for blah 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 blah. Reminder, these are your deliverables. This is the delivery date. And it's like, even just down to stuff like that, it's the consistency that shows couples that, you're professional, you're reliable, if that's obviously your
So
brand, which that's
true.
ours,
Yeah.
that aligns with you as well. So it just all that good stuff, like everything that you touched on, it was like, that is it.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like too for us, it's not a secret. Like you can ask any of, my girls on the team or any vendors that we work with a lot. I think, let me back up. It's important to be true to who you are throughout the process too, because I am very emotional. And I used to think that that was a bad thing in business. I would used to, try to hide that and not really tap into that. But then I realized that your emotion is power with these things, right? And so I want to connect with them on the first inquiry call. Like, I want to know why they fell in love. I want to integrate that into their branding and in their design and in their story, and know that I'm really invested. When you turn around during your first dance, I'm probably crying. After the wedding, I want to go get dinner. Like, I become friends with all of my clients. And so I think that these things that we feel like are weaknesses or they're not so talked about in terms of the industry as a whole, they can actually be strengths and the things that set you apart, whether it's in your branding or just how you're made, they're really important and they can be your superpower. So I would lean into that 1,000%.
I like that. I think that's one thing that at first I thought that I had to like be a different person
Yes.
for my brand, but it's like, no, I'm just being this
You.
more refined version of myself,
Yeah.
which has always been there. It's just that,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna show up to a wedding in sweatpants. I love wearing sweatpants, but like not to a wedding, for example. But yeah, I think I think like what you said, like leaning into like for you, your emotions and like your personality, that's a big part of branding as well. And that's another thing that sets you apart that clients want to connect with. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that you said that.
For sure.
Talking about like processes and SOPs and
Yeah.
all of that tying into branding, do you have anything else you want to share about like how having clear systems can really make your brand stronger in the eyes of clients and potential clients?
I do. I am a process nerd. I think the most important thing here is that consistency is key. And so we are always fine tuning our SOPs, standard operating procedures. I'm crazy about systems. I'm crazy about processes. Anything that we can automate that's conveying our brand voice, we do. Email templates are huge. Deliverables, streamlining those are huge. My girls make fun of me for it because I'm so process oriented, but my first job was actually in a law firm redoing their processes for them and implementing it. I do that for other huge wedding planners now. Like, I go and I work on their processes internally because I'm so passionate about it. I believe that your processes should be so good that if you fall off the face of the earth, your director of operations or your staff or whoever should be able to step in your shoes, look at your processes, look at how you've set up your business and replicate that so the client experience never changes. And with that, I think that too, it's efficient, right? So it promotes efficiency, but it also allows you to have this great client experience because with those systems in place, you can really refine what you want to put out. So you can refine all the deliverables, all the touch points. You can make sure that your clients are feeling the way that you want them to feel, which for us is loved, supported, and valued. And when we're not scrambling to try to perfect our processes or trying to figure out what part of the planning process comes next, when we already have that, we're focused on better serving them rather than what order should take place in that planning process as a whole. So I could talk about processes all day. I think that it's with branding, they're married. The most important thing that you can do for your business and that you can take time to invest in and just make sure that it's to the level that you want them to be. Now, there's definitely caveats. Now, if I have a client that's coming in and we need to plan their wedding in 6 months and I have a standard 12-month SOP planning procedure, we're obviously going to tweak it because that's our job, is to make the client's life easier. But for the most part, you should be able to replicate it 1,000 times over. So
Yeah. Yeah, on our call a little while ago, you inspired me when you were talking about processes because we do have our processes and they're relatively organized, but I was like, this could be even better. So like I've been working on just streamlining things ever since. And it's been really great. I'm like, I mean, if I stepped away, people could handle this, 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 and this.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's so true.
Yeah. So we touched a little bit on this one as well earlier,
Okay.
but like talking about social media, how does that play into showcasing your brand? Do you have any tips for like showing up online in a way that feels cohesive and true to your business and your brand?
So I would say, first and foremost, make a brand strategy and stick to it. That's not something that I'm always great at in busy seasons. I find that social media is easy to be the first thing that slips, but I do think that it's important to keep showing up for the people that are showing up for you and supporting you and following along with you. I'm very, into connection and emotions and authenticity. So I like to show my face on stories. I like to talk to our followers. I like to ask questions. I like to engage with them. Am very, it depends, I think, but I'm not one to outsource my socials because I want it to convey my brand voice. And so for me, I think that it's more worth it to keep it in house. Let me post, make sure my messaging is there, make sure it's intentional rather than outsourcing it, even if it's a little bit more consistent if I'm outsourcing it. So I think it's important to give yourself grace. Like we're running businesses. We're not full-time social media managers, but at the same time, it is really important. And like I said, I mean, it's for us, like I touched on the emojis, it's still a part of your brand and marketing strategy. And so showing up as that persona and that version of you and the version that has these incredible goals set, posting, the work that you're really proud of and that you love, it should be, again, a fun thing. I think too many people get stressed out about social media, which is totally understandable, but it should be something that's fun. And again, it should be an extension of you, extension of things that you love. It's where you get to engage with your friends. And, we don't always have coworkers. We have people in the office with us as a planning company, but for a lot of small businesses in the wedding industry, that's not always the case. So engage with your people and use it as a platform to connect, but also keep your brand identity, keep it consistent. I think that it should be a fun thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm very passionate about social media. We did a podcast episode about this a while ago. So I won't, dive too deep, but I agree with everything that you said. And just like I said earlier, like the imagery that you use on your website, on your social media, it should, be consistent with your brand.
So true.
Like I said earlier, our couples are typically very family oriented. So like today I just posted a father-daughter first look, and it's like that's super consistent with our brand. Something else like for example, like a groomsman getting drunk and doing something funny, that's, that maybe happens at our weddings and maybe it would go viral,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that doesn't really align with our brand. So we're not
Totally.
necessarily going to post that.
For
For
sure.
someone else, that might align with their brand. If they're like a super fun and like party type filmmaker, then they should post that. But yeah, I'm super passionate about social media, showing up, being consistent, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
For sure.
So we're kind of getting to the end of our conversation. I knew that we could talk a long time about this, but wrapping it up, do you feel like there is anything else that you want to share about branding? Literally anything that we haven't talked about or something you want to touch on further? You have the floor.
Okay, I think to close, I would just say that there's no right or wrong when it comes to what your branding should be. I think that there's a sea of vendors. This is a creative industry. And so use your branding to showcase your personality, what you're passionate about, who you are, what you believe in, and it'll take you far. I think that it's very easy, like we talked about before, to think that your branding should be one thing or another. But what's going to set you apart, what's going to allow you to scale is if you're able to really show your heart, really stand by your branding, stand by your messaging, stand by your decisions, even if, you encounter some backlash for it, that's what's going to make you successful. And keeping your head down, working on those things, staying true to yourself, building that brand persona and your identity that is intentional and that's true and that really allows you to do what you love and show people what you're passionate about, that's what's going to take you far. So I think that kind of sums up our conversation as a whole. But I appreciate you. I've loved this episode. I'm honored to have been a guest on it. And if anyone has any questions about branding or wedding planning, feel free to reach out. I'm always here. Would love to talk to anyone. And this has been so fun. So
Yeah, awesome. And I was going to ask if the listeners want to follow along, if they, maybe they're a couple, they want to inquire with you, maybe they're a vendor, they just want to connect with you. Where can they find you on social media, website, all the fun things?
Yeah, everything is at Madelyn Tenney Events. So very simple, just my name. We just rebranded our website. We finished it after so long. So check it out. And if you scroll down a little bit, our branding is on our Instagram too. But we would love to have everyone follow along. We'd love to connect and would love to dive more into this topic with anyone. I'm obviously super passionate about it. So I think that we would have a great time talking about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. I absolutely loved it. I know that our listeners will as well. And I'll talk to you later.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wedding Pro podcast. If you found this episode helpful, we would love it for you to share with a fellow vendor or someone who's getting married soon. Your support means the world to us and helps us reach more people in this amazing industry. We'll see you next time.